Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. In this episode, we'll just be going around and making sure all of our lines are functioning as they should be. It's been a while since we've checked how our lines are doing in terms of making us money, and we'll also check up on some of the things that we've built over the last couple of episodes. So the first thing I want to do is come into our line statistics tab and just take a look at some of our trains, how much they're making us, and what trains have really been worth it and which ones maybe need a little bit of work and adjusting. So of course, as expected, a lot of our passenger trains are up here at the top, making us well over 15 million each, with some even earning us up closer to 30 million. We do have this cargo train here making us a good amount of money. This is the one that we recently put in that goes all the way over to Albuquerque and Winston-Salem. So let's take a quick look at this line and the finances it has. Well, I suppose this is just the vehicle, but we can see here it's making a ton of money, and that seems to continue climbing as long as demand is growing and we're bringing more and more resources. So I don't think there's anything extra we need to do with this train or these lines. I think they're functioning pretty much as needed. Now we do have a bunch of resources here, but I do think that's just because we had that train drop off a bunch of stuff. So these trucks now have tons of things to pick up. Hopefully if we take a look over here, we still have a good amount of traffic issues, although the private transportation seems to be in the left lane now instead of the right lane. I'm not sure if we did anything to switch that up, but something did change in here, so maybe it's getting better, maybe it's getting worse. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. Now, while we're at Winston-Salem, I want to take a look at our ferry line here. If we take a look, it is operating, and it hasn't really been making us a profit, as it's probably only been carrying just a few passengers each way. And I think what's really eating into our numbers there is the connection we recently made here across the bridge, as it seems like it almost might be quicker for people to drive on this road into San Jose than it is taking this boat. So I want to take a quick look here and see if maybe we have some quicker boats we can use. So if we sort by passenger, this is the current boat that we're using, 22 miles an hour. And taking a look at all of our existing boats, they're all pretty much the same besides this HCSR N6. This is essentially a hovercraft. It can carry 20 people, which is pretty decent, and has a top speed of 58 miles an hour. So considering our ferries aren't carrying that many people, I think it might be worth it to upgrade to these hovercrafts, and then maybe we'll get 2 more on here and we'll see the effects of that. Hopefully that'll bring people off of this road going into San Jose and get more people onto our boats. We'll just have to see, but because this is considerably quicker, there should be some change in the demand there. And another thing, while we're here in San Jose, we do still have all of this traffic back up, and we can see it's pretty much just shifted into the city. So I think what we're going to try to do is get a high capacity road, maybe more or less like a mini highway that wraps around the outside of the city and gives an outlet for maybe people over here can get on that road and come around instead of traveling all the way through the city to get anywhere. So I think pretty much how we're going to do this is starting right at this intersection, we're going to switch to a 4-lane road. And we're going to keep that going all the way to here, where then at this point we will delete some of these roads. And essentially we'll continue it around this way. I think we'll elevate it in this area just so we don't have to deal with this little dip. We'll get a nice bridge going this way, and then we'll have to figure out how we're going to handle the hill here, but we'll do our best to wrap around the city instead of cutting through it and see the kind of effect that gives us. So I think over here is a good spot to end it. We were able to get pretty much around the hill. It didn't actually end up being that big of a problem. And then we have this bridge that comes across here. I'm actually thinking we could maybe pull this back more, and we can actually get a much flatter bridge if we start maybe all the way back where this road is. So there we go, the bridge is much flatter now and maybe a little more realistic. I kind of like how this looks. That still allows the city to grow underneath it. I think we will make this little lake just a bit bigger, just so it almost justifies the bridge. But we'll leave this, and I think we just need to make a few connections to this road, and then hopefully we'll start to see the effects of it. So we'll have a connection here all the way at the end. We might actually have to delete this road and redo the connection. But there we go. We'll have another one right about here, wherever it'll let us have it. So actually we'll just move over a road and do this. And then right here we can have another connection. That looks good. And then maybe right here coming up out of this area can have a connection to the road. And I think that should be good enough. If we really wanted to, I suppose we could have one here, and we'll just upgrade this all the way to there. But I think because this is one of our main roads into the city, we'll upgrade this road to be 4 lanes. And there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done with these streets, so we'll come in and clean that up as well. So now we have 2 big roads coming through the city. We have this one that comes and curves through here, and then this one that drives straight through it to our sort of passenger hub area in San Jose. And hopefully this will clear up the traffic, as some people over here will choose to take this road instead of all funneling onto this road here to get out of the city. I suppose there is an opportunity we can make a connection across the tracks. Alright, so we actually couldn't get a connection across here, but I think that's okay. I think all the other connections we have should be good enough for now. We'll let that play, and hopefully, checking our traffic layer, we'll begin to see these streets open up a bit more. Now, while we're on our traffic layer, I wanted to come down to Downey and Mesa and take a look at this change that we made. And it seems like we're actually getting pretty close. It looks like this might be the end of the traffic jam, coming out of Mesa at least, and all of these roads still seem to be functioning pretty well. We are still dealing with a major traffic jam coming into Mesa, but I think this road is finally starting to work, so we are alleviating some of that traffic, and I'm not too sure how we would fix all of this coming in. We might have to completely demolish this sort of entry area and maybe add larger roads that come around the sides of the city, which wouldn't be terrible. I could see maybe a 4-lane road sort of defining the edge of our cliff here. But we'll sort of sit and think about that. If you guys have any suggestions on how to fix this, please leave it in the comments. I'm pretty open to anything, so if you have any cool or fun ideas, let me know and we'll try it out to solve this line of traffic. So now I wanted to come back and continue taking a look at some of what's making us the most money. And if we flip this and look at what's losing us the most money, obviously it's our 2 most recent lines, our high-speed trains going to Downey, San Jose, and Birmingham, but those are very new, so demand is pretty much expectedly very low. We do see the San Jose to Birmingham line getting a little bit fuller. Maybe if we check, we'll start to see it does seem like it is making a profit this period, which is good. And of course, as they continue to space themselves out across the high-speed line, income will be much more consistent from there. Now, sort of taking a look at the next chunk of what's losing us money, we have, well, our construction materials train just popped up here, but I think that's just because it hasn't delivered anything in a little bit. But this Montgomery goods to the car, to, I believe this is Jackson actually, is losing us money. And let's just come and take a look at to why that is. So it seems like the station has plenty of room for goods to pop up there, and the goods factory is getting pretty close to being maxed out. We can come back and take another look at the plastics and steel line again soon. But it just seems like Jackson's not really demanding much. So I'm thinking maybe our truck stop that we're delivering our goods to just isn't in the right area, or maybe there just simply isn't that many goods in Jackson. So locating where our goods are, they're all concentrated right here, which is definitely connected to a truck station. So I think it's just the low demand of goods in Jackson. I'm hesitant to cut that line though, because I don't want to funnel all 6 resources onto a single train, but it wouldn't be a bad thing to do that. I think maybe the one thing we will do to maybe at least cut our losses is we'll redesign this train and give it a little less capacity, just so it's not losing us a bunch of money. And if we take a look at the train we were running, it does have a top speed of only 62 miles an hour, so there's a lot to be improved on that. Alright, so this will be the train that we replace it with. It's just a simple Dash 8 40BW engine with 7 boxcars behind it. We should be able to replace it pretty easily, and let's just double check that it's set properly so it's only picking up goods. That's what we want, and hopefully we'll see it begin to at least lose us a little bit less money. So it seems like that's all the big lines losing us a bunch of money, as everything else is either buses, which we sort of expect to lose us money, or passenger lines that are just simply low right now. One thing that does stick out to me is maybe this cargo hub to Stockton. It seems like our boats are hardly carrying any fuel back and forth here, so I think we'll just sell one of these and we'll only have one ship of fuel going back and forth, as the Stockton demand for fuel is pretty low, so it does seem like it's getting everything else that it needs, which is good to see, and you can see just how much it's started to expand out this way. Hopefully it'll take over this whole peninsula, and that'd be a pretty cool thing to see. One good thing is it's not climbing up this cliffside, which is what we were worried about, but it seems to be filling out this sort of bay side quite nicely. Alright, and while we were flying around the map, it seems like something messed up here, and now we have a ton of resources waiting to go into Sacramento. And that's definitely not what we want. So we'll have to find the culprit of this. And it could have been maybe this food line. I think it is this food line. So we never set this to properly load and unload at each location. So it was starting to bring resources in to go up to Sacramento. And if we follow this, it looks like that seems to be how it was getting it. I think the trucks from the cargo hub were bringing it in. It was getting dropped off at this port, and then that's how these resources were getting over to Sacramento. So hopefully just switching that line on the truck should fix things, and it should be going back to normal. But anyway, moving on, I want to check up on some things that we've done in the past couple of episodes, and I think that's going to start over here in Jackson, and taking a look at how some of our new trains have been handling the passenger demand. So taking a quick look at these numbers, everything seems good, except for this Jackson, Winston-Salem, Albuquerque line, yet again, being completely full. Another big one is our Jackson to Santa Clarita line, which this is one that we've actually done recently. And if we take a look at the trains here, they do have a decent amount of capacity. I believe each one has about 165 capacity. It's making us a ton of money. So maybe we'll update these trains to have more capacity. So I've gone back and forth on just adding an extra car or redoing the whole train. And I think we'll add an extra car. So we'll modify this one. And we'll do the same for the other train. We will just simply add on another bi-level car, and then I think we'll just add a whole nother engine. There's more than enough demand. If we take a look in Santa Clarita here, there's tons of people waiting here as well, so I think just getting a third train on here best suits the needs of the line. And just to spice things up, we did repaint the trains again, so we used this black, and I think it makes these passenger cars look much more bearable. I'm not a huge fan of the design, and the colors made it really hard to match with the engine, but I think the simple black and white color scheme here looks really good on these cars. So coming back here, we still of course have the issue of our Jackson, Winston-Salem, Albuquerque line. This seems to be making us a ton of money, but there's definitely still profits to be made. And I'd happily add more trains to this line. I'm just worried about overloading the main line itself with traffic, although it seems like we don't really have that many trains running anyway. It seems like this track is almost strictly reserved for that line anyway, so maybe we could afford to add a few more cars there. However, before we do that, we are going to redo this train here, which runs on the same set of tracks, and this is our direct line between Jackson and Albuquerque. As much as I like the train, it's definitely long overdue to be upgraded, as the diesel engine that it's running isn't quite the fastest or the most powerful thing, so I just don't want our other trains getting stuck behind it. Alright, so this is a train that we're going to end up replacing it with. We used the BR 103.1 engine, which we used on our line out to Modesto, I believe, and then we added a couple of these Superliner coach passenger cars behind it, just as a different variety of passenger car. We've been starting to use the same thing over and over again, and so this will help provide some variety while still keeping us at a high speed. So we'll replace these, and of course there's no electric path, and I wonder where that would be. So it seems like the electric path stops right here where the old merge used to be. So we'll just go through, electrify the lines all the way out to Albuquerque, and then we'll replace it with that new train. Alright, I suppose while we're electrifying everything, we might as well electrify our path that goes into our train depot. So we'll just electrify that one rail and continue going on our way. And now the last thing we're going to do is replace this bridge. So we'll pause. This is a very old bridge that is pretty slow. I believe the stone bridges only have a top speed of 56 miles an hour. So replacing this will also help all of our other lines that come into Albuquerque just be that much quicker as it comes towards the city. And so we'll drag this across the water here. I don't think we needed to keep it high enough for navigable waters, but then we'll go with, let's go with this bridge. It's something a little different, so it'll give a unique look to the area. So this doesn't look too bad. It's a nice sort of low profile bridge. And I believe it's electrified, so we should be able to let this run. And we'll just have to replace that train again. Alright, so we've replaced this train, and here it is coming through Winston-Salem. I think the car and the train looks pretty good together. And the engine itself is not quite the style, but it does have the power for it, so we'll leave it as is. And hopefully this extra little bit of speed and capacity will help with that, all that demand. And then finally, now that we have our tracks hopefully cleared up well enough with the new train that's running on it, we can manage these vehicles. And let's just double check quick that we don't have anything better to replace it with now. So it definitely seems like these are still our best trains to run. I think we'll get 2 more actually. So we'll get 2 more of those going, and hopefully those can ease the demand, as that's by far our most in-demand line at the moment. Alright, so one thing that we haven't looked at in quite a while is our sort of mountaintop mining operation that we got going on over here, as we have all these trucks bringing in iron and coal to this train station where that gets shipped just down the mountain to the steel mill here. And I think we could maybe use with just a few more trains or slightly more capacity coming down through here. So just taking a look at our rate on the train line, it has a rate of 948, so we'll want to increase that to whatever the rate of this line and this line is. So we'll take a look here. So 519 on coal, and then here we have 585 on iron. So what that tells me is we could actually probably sell one of our vehicles on the coal line, and that'll get us a little bit closer in terms of numbers. And in terms of our train, we're actually pretty close there, as we probably want to get that just over 1,000. So let's just manage both of these actually, and we'll replace these with something a little bit different, maybe something that suits sort of the mine theme. Maybe just get a bunch of smaller trains instead of two big trains. So actually what I think we'll just do is take these engines that we're already running, we'll take off a few of the cars, and then we'll get a third one running. So if we take a look at our rate now with those 3 engines, that brings us up to just over 1,000, which is pretty much about where we want to be. So hopefully that'll give us slightly more consistent flow down to the steel mill as well, and we can keep this platform full for our train that comes all the way out to the machines factory. Alright, so another thing that I mentioned a couple of episodes ago is bringing resources in from the cargo hub to Scottsdale instead of using this distribution center. So this can be reserved strictly for the city of Jackson. And the goal of this was to just get traffic off of this street here. So I'm not sure. I think we actually do just have mostly Jackson resources besides the food coming in here. And I think a lot of our truck traffic is coming from our port down this way. So let's just click Scottsdale and see if it's getting everything it needs. And we can see it's actually missing machines and goods as resources. So I think that combined with food is all stuff we can bring in from the cargo hub by truck. So we'll just have to find a good spot for machines, goods, and food to come into. And it seems like we actually already have that spot sort of right here. That covers pretty much all the food, probably like 90% of the machines, and all of the goods. So perhaps maybe we just have to come here and we'll completely delete this line so we can manage these vehicles, sell those, and then manage the line and delete the line. Now, one connection I think we'll make to this distribution center is a road coming out of here up the hill and then connecting maybe over here. So this will give a sort of back route into Jackson, so it's not all on this main road where a lot of our private transportation comes in. So first we'll have to delete this road. And then first we'll drag out this road like so. It's gonna give us a collision issue because of the collision tile that we have underneath, but we'll ignore that for now. So we'll click build anyway. And then we'll start to curve this around and see if we can get it to reasonably come up to the road this way. So we end off with our road looking like this. I don't think that's terribly unrealistic. It does get a little steep over here, but I don't think there's really any better way you could go about this. So then we'll just smooth out the edge of this road to blend it a bit better, and hopefully some of our lines will start to recognize that connection. So it seems like at least this food line will use it for returning trucks, which I'm fine with. Even if it is just one line, that's okay by me. That's just a few more trucks not using this intersection here. I do think, however, though, we need to stop delivering food to this stop and give its own private truck stop. That was a bus stop. Right here in the middle of all this food. So hopefully that'll give us more food demand coming in on our cargo train. And speaking of that, we're going to take a look at the cargo train coming into Jackson once we figure this out. So now it's our food coming to this stop here. And then everything else, or at least a couple of other things, is coming into this stop. And then this stop here has pretty much everything else. So we have fuel, goods, and tools coming into this one. Let's see if that still applies. And that pretty much covers it all. That covers pretty much everything that we need it to. Up here we have machines and construction materials. I'm tempted to move the machines line over to here, and we can keep the construction materials where it is, as the construction materials are sort of spread out all over the place. So we'll move machines to this stop. We'll click this line, get rid of that one, and add that stop in like so. And I think as for everything else, in terms of Jackson, is routed pretty well through the city, and it's even more spread out, so hopefully it isn't concentrated anywhere that we really need. So then this means coming into our port, we'll want these lines to know where they're going. So we have this construction materials line that comes over to this street. And it seems like this isn't really the best spot for it. I think right here, one of these streets is a much better location for construction materials. So we'll place that down one street over from our bus stop. We will reroute it to this truck stop. And we might even get an extra vehicle or two, since that should considerably increase the demand that we have for construction materials. The next line we have is our fuel line, and let's just check. Okay, so fuel is the only thing remaining at this truck stop. That seems appropriate, as this seems to cover all of the fuel. Up here is tools, and this is definitely not where we want to be delivering tools. We want tools to be delivered pretty much right here, as that will get almost all of them in the city. So we'll add that stop back in. And I think this is more than enough trucks to handle that demand. I think we can delete this stop now, since that's not being used. And then the remaining resources, food, machines, and goods, will be coming from the cargo hub. And it looks like machines can be covered by this stop here, and then foods and goods can both be covered by a stop pretty close to the one that we just deleted. So now we'll have to come over to the cargo hub, set up those two separate lines. We'll do the same thing we did for Birmingham. We'll have all those coming out of one platform, so we're not just wasting a bunch of platforms. And I think for this we'll ship it directly into the city. We don't have to go too deep into Scottsdale for this. So I think we'll get maybe 14 trucks would suit pretty well. We'll go there, and then all the way into, I believe it was this stop was for 2 of the goods. We'll have to double check that. So this one is goods and food. So we'll manage this, and we'll have it load only food and goods, and then unload everything at the stop. And then the last thing it needs, machines, we'll get, I'd say probably 8 trucks of those going from the cargo hub to this stop. And again, we'll set it properly. And so we'll get all of those trucks coming out of the proper platform. So those will both be on platform 4. And we already have some resources starting to pile up here. So we'll let these trucks go about and start to do their thing. I think we will actually just for the sake of variety, repaint some of these. We'll do like a, well, maybe not that color of blue, but I think this blue will look just fine on these trucks. And that'll help provide some variety so we don't get all these red trucks coming through here. Alright, so one thing I want to upgrade while we're still looking at Jackson Scottsdale is the boat line going to Jackson, the port there that brings the construction materials. I think I want to sell one of these boats, and then we'll replace them with much newer cargo boats. I don't think we need anything massive. We just need something that's big enough to move the construction materials and isn't still a steamboat. So I think we'll try... I'm going back and forth between the towboat and this one. I think we'll just go with this boat. I know we use it on a bunch of other lines as well, but it sort of is a nice all-around boat. And we don't need that newest one that has the biggest capacity because most of our construction materials are focused on going to the cargo hub and not directly to Jackson. Alright, now lastly I just want to adjust some of the trains here before we finish off this episode. You can see some of these platforms are completely full of construction materials, which tells us that we're not getting rid of them quick enough. And that's taking resources away from a lot of our other lines. So it looks like those two lines include our cargo hub to Montgomery line. So I'm hoping... Let's just see where Montgomery is. Well, I guess our single cargo hub to Montgomery train. I think we might just redo this entire train, as we now have faster trains bringing goods, I believe. So we'll just replace this, and we'll replace it with something that has considerably more capacity for construction materials. So currently we are only bringing in 3 resources to Montgomery, and I think we'll keep it that way. So food, tools, and construction materials. Alright, so here's the train we're going to replace it with. It's 2 of these Dash 8 40BW engines with a whole bunch of cars, much more capacity than it had before. I believe it's about 120 capacity for construction materials, so hopefully that works out. If not, it can always just add more later on. So this is the train. It's much longer now, so hopefully it fits into all the stations. We'll have to keep an eye on our warnings and make sure it's not too long to flip around, but this should be okay. And then coming back to some of our other trains that are having construction material backlogs. Our cargo hub to Modesto line. This one might be just as easy as editing the train. And so maybe we'll get rid of 2 box cars and we'll throw on like 3 or 4 extra flat cars on the end. And it seems like some of our trains are too long to do their crossovers now. So this one's too long. We will replace this one just like so. And then we have this one over here, which looks like it's okay for now, but we definitely need to move it once the train gets out of here. So now we move this crossover down the tracks just a bit more, and there's more than enough space here for the trains to do that. I think another thing that'll help is if we extend our cargo platforms, as we definitely have the space over here to do that. Besides right here, which might just be maybe a collision tile thing, or maybe it's the fences. We'll take a look at that another time, but I think extending the platforms this way, I think we also have to do the same with the tracks, as it looks like the other tracks aren't really connected to it in that way. So we'll grab our tracks, replace all these, and then I think we'll end the episode off there. Alright, so now all of our cargo hub issues are solved in terms of the trains. There was actually one last thing I wanted to take a look at, which was our train to Jackson. As we take a look, it doesn't really consistently make us money, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. I think maybe just there's not that much demand for it. I think maybe since we've replaced some of the truck stops, that might start to adjust the demand on that line, so I don't think we're going to touch that train just yet. We'll let the demand adjust, especially since we relocated the food to a much better location. So we'll just have to sit and let that go. But so I think that's all we're going to do in this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.